Welcome back. Gabriel just attended a lecture, or, well, part of it anyway. He slept through most of the rest. But it was still pretty interesting, and I think it might be worth our trouble to try and talk to this Professor Hartridge in more detail, because he mentioned a couple of things that I'm interested in, like Veveys, which is apparently what that pattern we got from the crime scene is. He also mentioned a couple of objects already seen in other parts of the game, like the Seke Madule, which is the ritual coffin, which we saw in the museum, and the curved blade, which has been seen in Gabriel's dreams, and has been mentioned as a possible murder weapon. We can probably find Hartridge through this door, because that's where he left to. However, let's look around first.
Gabriel's in one of the lecture halls at Tulane University. A projection screen dominates the front of the hall. The podium. Hartridge's throne.
Where does this lead?
Those doors lead to the projection booth.
That makes sense. Looks like there's a bulletin board.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Greek night at the Alpha Psi Omega frat house. It looks like it took place sometime last spring.
Ah, completely out of date. Announcements for events being on university bulletin boards. I can inform you that that is completely realistic. Nobody ever bothers to remove those things.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. There's a notice for a lecture on investigative reporting techniques to be given by octogenarian Pulitzer Prize winner Laura Bo Dorian. Unfortunately, it's weeks away. By that time, Gabriel will have to have learned on his own.
That's too bad. Nice little nod to Sierra fans there. As, of course, we knew already that, well, you might not have, but I did, that Laura Bow was a student of Tulane University, as could be seen during the introduction of the Colonel's Bequest. So apparently she's coming back here to give us a speech. And her age is also about right, given that the Colonel's Bequest took place in 1925, I think. Also, giving her name as Laura Bo Dorian is a bit of a spoiler for for Laura Bo 2, the Dagger of Amun-Ra, I think. Not a major one, but a bit.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Need a ride to LA the last weekend in August.
I wouldn't go there if you paid me.
The cheap way to travel, that is.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Work out of your home and make up to $2,000 a week in your spare time. Call 555-6789.
I actually called them once. You sell cat food over the phone.
Never tried calling them in the game. Not sure if it works.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Ha! We'll do algebra or biology homework for food.
That sounds a bit desperate.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Jazz jam session every Tuesday at 7 in the music building.
Sorry.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Haircuts for $10 a head. Perms for $20 at the Tulane Beauty School West Campus.
Like I'd let an amateur touch these locks.
As if they do any damage. Can't get any worse.
Gabriel scans the bulletin board. Greek night at the art.
Looks like that's all of them. Nothing relevant, unfortunately. They have a sound system here.
There's a PA speaker on the wall. There's a door on one side of the stage.
Well, I think that is where we can find Hartridge, so let's go through it.
Are you a student? No. My name is Knight. Gabriel Knight.
Well, you have walked into my private office, Mr. Knight. I hope you have something worthwhile to do here. If you figure it out, let me know.
He has quite an interesting looking office, I have to say.
Dr. Hartridge's office is crowded with masks, carved figures, and strange objects.
Looks like he really is into African religions. But then we already knew that, didn't we?
The door leads back. Dr. Hartridge's office. An old globe sits atop Hartridge's file cabinet. It's Hartridge's file cabinet.
Is there anything in there?
Please don't touch that.
We'll never find out.
Dr. Hartridge's... The carved stone head looks African and very old. That mask is quite hideous.
Well, from what we can see of it, I agree.
The squatter grins maliciously at Gabriel.
That looks like an Easter Island head.
It's an enormous stone head. Dr. Hartridge's... The shelves behind Hartridge's desk are full of old books.
And he's got an aquarium.
Exotic fish lend even more color to the cluttered office. The shelves behind Dr. Hartridge's desk is remarkably neat, especially considering the rest of the room.
Is that so? I was trying to look at what this thing in front of it is, but apparently we can't tell.
Did you know there's a whole branch of archaeology devoted to garbage? Maybe you should look into it.
Maybe I won't. Alright, let's talk to this guy.
Your lecture was terrific.
Oh, you think so? You were snoring so loud I didn't think you'd heard it.
If he was snoring, why didn't they wake him up and throw him out?
You must travel a lot.
Yes, to Africa, mainly.
That's not surprising.
I suppose having all this voodoo stuff sitting around doesn't make you nervous at all.
It's voodoo stuff, and no. Why should it?
I'm very interested in voodoo myself right now.
How nice for you.
Hey, you've got quite a collection of goodies here.
My travels have been rewarding, yes.
You must travel up.
Yeah.
If you think Hartridge is being a bit cold, you do have to remember that a completely random guy just barged into his office after sleeping loudly through one of his lectures. So I think we can forgive him.
Mind if I pick your brain?
Not if it will get you out of my office.
It won't take long. We've got Vevey as a new option. For everyone, not just Hartridge. But let's start at the top.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
You already sat through my lecture on the subject, Mr. Knight. Perhaps next time you could stay awake and learn something.
Touché.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
I've read about them in the papers. I must admit, to some interest. But according to the newspapers, the voodoo aspect is faked, so I haven't really pursued it. You know how Americans, especially Hollywood, treats voodoo. I'm sure there are many so-called practitioners out there that have no idea what they're doing or the power they're playing with.
Yeah, Hartridge did mention something about voodoo priests and priestesses in Africa having actual powers, which, well, it's a good thing this is in the context of a fictional universe, because otherwise I would have laughed him out of the room.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
As I said, I don't know anything but what the papers say. According to them, there's no reason for me to be interested.
Perhaps we can persuade you otherwise.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
I find it interesting to see the occasional fragment of voodoo practices in the everyday culture of New Orleans.
What else can you tell me about New Orleans?
The Catholic Church has always dominated in New Orleans, and its imagery, in turn, has dominated New Orleans voodoo.
What else can you tell me about New Orleans?
If there's more you wish to know, perhaps you should read my books.
Perhaps we won't.
Do you know anything about snakes?
I'm not a zoologist, Mr. Knight, but I know all I care to about reptiles.
Do you know anything about snakes? Do you know anything about snakes?
I'm not a zoologist, Mr. Knight.
An archaeologist who doesn't like snakes. Why does that sound familiar?
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
It's June 23rd, the feast day of St. John the Baptist. The June 23rd has been a sacred day since the earliest times. Ancient sun worshippers used to roll a flaming wheel down a hill to celebrate the sun's descent on that day.
A burning wheel? Huh.
I guess it's midsummer or something, and it's also coming up pretty soon. But then we kind of already knew that, because otherwise why would the Dixieland drugstore be having a St. John's Eve special if it wasn't around this time? Cabri Saint-Cor, he's probably one of the more likely people to be able to tell us what it means.
Do you have any idea what Cabri Saint-Cor means?
Cabri Saint-Cor. Yes, I do. It's a Haitian term, I believe. It's French, and literally translates as goat without horns.
As in a female goat?
No, as in a human sacrifice. Sacrifices in voodoo are usually of the animal variety. Chickens, bulls, goats. If the gods demand a goat without horns, it means a human being.
Okay. That's nice. Especially considering that Willie set that term when we mentioned the voodoo murders. Which not only means that Willie obviously knows something about those murders, but also seems to indicate that they are, in fact, real ritual voodoo killings.
What was that translation for Cabri Saint-Cor again?
I'm not in the habit of repeating myself, Mr. Knight.
Well, we do have a tape recorder, so if you did miss it, you can always check again.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
While I find the colloquial bastardizations of voodoo somewhat interesting from a sheerly intellectual point of view, there's not a lot of relation between people like Laveau and true voodoo practices.
If you say so.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
I'm not in the habit of repeating myself, Mr. Knight.
It seems a lot of people are saying that Marie Laveau was not a real voodoo queen, but just a shadow figure. Keeping up appearances, I guess, to keep the real world of voodoo hidden.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
As I said in my lecture, which I assume you actually listened to, is that animal masks, totems, are used extensively in most African voodoo religions.
Yes, he did say that. Well, we'll see what else he knows in the next video.